So in March 2021, Nubia launched the Redmagic 6, currently priced at £509. Now I've already done a full review and I called it the best gaming smartphone of 2021. I said it's better than the Black Shark, better than the newest Asus ROG. In fact, this smartphone travels with me everywhere. It's in my bag, it's my dedicated smartphone for gaming. It's unbelievably reliable, powerful, with a super cooling system. So I could be gaming 4 to 6 hours non-stop on this and I don't need to worry about overheating because it has a dedicated cooling fan and it's very powerful, Snapdragon 888 performance. This is the best gaming smartphone you can currently buy today. Fast forward 2 months, Nubia drops the Redmagic 6R. This is the racing edition, priced a lot cheaper at $389. But it has exactly the same chipset as the original 6 model and exactly the same performance, but it has been tweaked to make it a lot slimmer and lighter. However, a few things have been taken out. So it's no longer the best when you compare it to the original 6, but it's certainly nice to have a cheaper option. Now, if we fast forward a few months to September 2021, that's our current month right now, Nubia has just launched the Redmagic 6S Pro, and it's priced around $529. Now at this stage, this is what I'm thinking. You already made the best gaming smartphone in the world. What could you possibly do to the 6S Pro to make it better? That's where I come in. So today I bring you a triple head-to-head comparison. So Redmagic 6 versus Redmagic 6R versus the latest Redmagic 6 Pro. So first of all, let's begin with the physical differences. So all three phones have a metal frame going all the way around. The 6S Pro and the original 6 both have a glass back, and the 6R has a plastic back, which is quite apparent when you feel it. Also, the 6S and the 6 Pro look identical. Same camera bump layout, nearly the same markings, same build quality. All the ports you can see are identical, including the positioning and location of the touch triggers, which are at the top. Now the 6S has slightly upgraded triggers. They look the same, they're the same thickness, but they are faster, so 450 Hz touch triggers versus 400 Hz on the original 6 model, and they both do have headphone jacks at the top of the phone. The racing version is slightly different. You have a completely different camera bump layout, quad cameras versus triple cameras. The ports are completely rearranged. So you can see completely rearranged ports. No headphone jack. You've still got touch triggers, they are 400 Hz, but you can see that they are much slimmer than the 6S Pro and even slimmer than the original 6. So the 6S Pro and the 6 have exactly the same size triggers, whereas the Redmagic 6R has very slim triggers. Now, having the slim triggers doesn't affect the performance. It still works really well and responsive when you're gaming. But the only thing is, it's a lot slimmer, and I find that the thicker triggers are a bit more comfortable for my own personal preference. Also, the 6R version does not have an internal cooling fan. So there's no vents on either side like you have in the other two. You've got vents on either side. So no physical cooling fan, whereas the other two do have physical cooling fans. And the 6S Pro has the slightly upgraded cooling fan, which is faster in performance. And all three phones support liquid cooling with graphene chambers. All three phones also have dual speakers, so one bottom firing and one top firing, supporting DTS Ultra X surround. But the speakers in the 6S Pro and the original 6 sound much better, louder and clearer, whereas the 6R version sound is not as loud as the other two, and I think that's got something to do with slimming down the dimensions of the phone. So that was basically the physical differences. Now let's talk about the specs. The 6S and the 6 has exactly the same AMOLED displays with 165 Hz refresh and 395 pixels per inch. The 6R has a slightly smaller 6.67 inch AMOLED display, so that's the difference side by side. The 6S Pro does look noticeably bigger, but all three phones share the same 2400 by 1080 screen resolutions with Gorilla Glass protection. Now we've got a slightly different peak brightness in all three smartphones. The 6S Pro has 700 nits of peak brightness, the 6R has 770 nits, and the original 6 model has 630 nits of peak brightness. The multi-touch sampling has been upgraded by nearly double the speed in the new 6S Pro. So we have 720 Hz touch sampling versus 360 Hz multi-touch in the other two phones. For power and performance, we have Snapdragon 888 in all three smartphones, but the 6S Pro has the upgraded Snapdragon 888 Plus, benefiting from the slightly higher clock speed of 3 GHz. Now the 6S Pro and the original 6 both start with 12 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM and 128 gigs of internal storage, and the 6R model starts with 8 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM and 128 gigs of internal storage. So here are the benchmark scores of all three phones. So the latest Redmagic 6S Pro has scored 868K, which is the highest score from the three. It's got a faster processor combined with the LPDDR5 RAM. It just flies. This is a super phone. The Redmagic 6R has scored 762K, so slightly lower performance than the two, and the original Redmagic 6 has scored 812K. And you can compare all the scores, the CPU, GPU, memory, and UX. You can compare all of that. Pause the video and have a look for yourself. Now, all three smartphones have Wi-Fi 6E, dual antennas, and Bluetooth 5.1 or above on all three of these smartphones, including built-in NFC. All three smartphones are also running the same Android 11 with Redmagic OS 4.0 on top. But the 6S Pro, as you can see, has a slightly upgraded UI, and it does look a lot cleaner, and you've got these useful widgets pre-installed for you, and you might notice there is a heart rate sensor app there. So this smartphone has Nubia's fingerprint sensor version 7. The other two have version 6. So version 7 brings the ability to check your heart rate just by placing your thumb on the fingerprint sensor. So I'm doing that. 14 seconds remaining. It says do not move. Please keep light during detection. 120 beats per minute, 75, 69, 3 more seconds left, and then it would just lock, and it would just lock to whatever it's found. So that's saying 124 beats per minute, but you know what I'm going to do, don't you? There's a medical grade sensor here. This is the O2 ring. So the O2 ring can test your heart rate and SpO2 at the same time, and that's super accurate, and it's also very quick. 97% blood oxygen and 118 beats per minute. So heart rate is quite high right now. It is super hot in this room. I've turned the fan off now. So yeah, I am kind of burning up. So anyway, let's do another heart rate test, and we're going to see how accurate Nubia's heart rate sensor is. Here we go. So 71 beats per minute and 119. You can see it's still continuously testing my heart rate on the O2 ring. So 119. And the Nubia's got it wrong. I'm going to do it again. 73 beats per minute, and my real heart rate right now is actually 108. So I guess that's more of a gimmick feature. It's not a medical grade heart rate sensor. Now let's talk about the battery capacity. Both the 6S Pro and Model 6 have the same 5050 milliamp hour batteries. The 6R has a smaller 4200 milliamp hour battery. In the box, you get 30-watt chargers for all three. I'll quickly show you what they look like. So 30-watt chargers are provided for you in the box. However, the 6S Pro and Model 6 both support 66-watt fast charging. So if you've got a fast charger on the side, which I do have, you'll be able to charge this phone up at a much faster speed. So with the 30-watt chargers, it takes around 60 minutes to charge the 5000 milliamp hour batteries, which is pretty fast as it is. But with the 66-watt charger, you can charge from 0 to 100 in under 44 minutes. So impressive that it has the ability for that faster charging speed. Now, gaming-wise, all three phones support a very advanced gaming experience with a dedicated UI on all three. So let me show you. The original 6 has a dedicated gaming button. Flick the switch. Wow. And you get that awesome sound and vibration, and it takes you straight into the game library, and you can just open up a game from here. If you want to exit the gaming mode, just flick the switch again, and boom, you're back into smartphone mode. So I really like the gaming switch. You got the same dedicated gaming switch on the 6S Pro. Flick the switch and you're in. But you will notice that the UI is slightly different. So you got the upgraded UI in the 6S Pro compared to the original 6. So it's going to look slightly different. It works in exactly the same way, but a few things have been moved around for convenience. Now, what about the 6R version? Well, the 6R version does not have a dedicated gaming button. So if you want to get into the dedicated gaming mode, you swipe down, it says game space there, tap it, and it takes you there. And you don't get the haptic vibration either when you go into it. These two kind of give you a light vibration when you enter gaming mode. You don't get that in the 6R, so that takes away that experience. And this is the older UI, the same as the original 6. But you can do everything on this exactly the same as the other two. But here's the thing I don't like. What if you want to exit the gaming mode? So you tap exit, then you tap quit. You know, it doesn't seem like much. You might be thinking I'm nitpicking, but seriously, boom, off, boom, on. And the vibration it just feels like you've just turned on a PlayStation 5 or something. You know, it gives you that type of thrill, whereas this one doesn't give you that same thrill. You can do it, it still works, and you can still play games at the same resolutions and the same frame rates. But, you know, that added touch is gone. Now, I do want to show you the difference in the UI. So both of these phones have the same UI. You can swipe to the left, and it gives you some controls. You've got brightness there. You can change the frame rate quite easily. A whole bunch of options there, including macro, video recording, so many different options there, including WhatsApp. It gives you your CPU speed, GPU speed. So this is the new UI. So I just want to show you the new UI on the 6S Pro. So swipe in from the left. Look how cool that looks. Look at, let me just show you in comparison. Old UI. So it does the same thing technically, but the new UI looks so much more sicker. Look at the CPU and GPU chart at the top. You've got the same, you've got it much smaller on there. But really, that one's the business. You can do all the same stuff. I'll just quickly show you the new UI. So you can change the resolution, brightness. You can have it on balance mode, rise, beyond, or infinite. After selecting this mode, higher performance may increase power consumption and generate heat. I don't care about heat because we've got the most powerful gaming smartphone with the best cooling fan ever. So you can put it on infinite. You can see the CPU speed being utilized there. Giving you the maximum power. You can do screenshots, screen recordings, all of that stuff can be still done. We've got a FPS counter there at the top as well. So performance wise, with everything maxed out on all three phones, we'll give you around 89 to 91 FPS when playing in the highest frame rate. And it's exactly the same with the 6R. All three phones have a very powerful processor. You ultimately get the same superb performance in all three smartphones, 89 to 90 frames per second max. However, with the 6R, there is no dedicated cooling fan. So if you live in a hot country or if it's a rather hot day, the phone will heat up pretty quick. Yes, you've got a graphene chamber with liquid cooling, but there's only so much cooling that it can give you. And if you do long session of gaming on this, chances are eventually, it may not happen straight away, but eventually it may lead to overheating. It hasn't happened to me so far, touch wood. I have really rinsed this. I played a lot of games on it and it has not let me down. But there is something about the 6S Pro and the original 6 that gives me that reliability. I know there's a cooling fan and I can hear it. Turn down the cooling fan if I want. I can turn it right down, put it on smart mode so it turns itself on when needed, or I can keep it on full. So that gives me a lot of assurance, and the phone never heats up to the touch. You can feel it. It's always under lukewarm. And that's after playing hours and hours of COD Mobile or PUBG Mobile or any of those type of games. Also, I really like the thicker triggers you get on the 6S Pro and the 6 model. The triggers just feel much better as opposed to the 6R where they are kind of thin, and the phone is also much slimmer. So you're not getting that same grip in your hands as you do get on the 6S Pro and the original 6 model. So I personally find it more comfortable holding and gaming the 6S Pro and the original 6. All right, now we're going to talk about the cameras. 6S Pro and the 6 has exactly the same cameras. So triple camera setup, 64 megapixel primary, 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. And on the front, they both have 8 megapixel selfie cameras, and it's on the top notch towards the right. You may just about be able to see them. However, the 6R has quad cameras on the back. So 64 megapixel primary, 8 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel depth, and then you've got an extra 5 megapixel macro, and on the front you have a 16 megapixel hole punch camera. So the extra macro lens and double the resolution front sensor when compared to the other two phones. If you're wondering, here is a quick side-by-side of the primary sensors. So this is 64 megapixel primary on all three, side-by-side. Do let me know what you guys think. Also, quick side-by-side of the ultra-wide angle lens. So all three have 8 megapixel ultra-wide lenses, and this is how they compare. Now, whilst these are gaming smartphones, and most of the thought and design has gone into the gaming and the performance, I'm actually surprisingly pleased with the cameras. And from my tests, all three are around the same in performance. The 6S Pro and the original 6, I would say, is slightly better in both photos and videos, but the 6R is also not bad. So you're getting an above average set of cameras, decent enough for everyday use, taking photos and shooting 4K video. Also, all three of these phones can actually shoot in 8K if you ever need to. So that was my quick side-by-side comparison of the Redmagic smartphones. In a matter of 6 months, we are seeing 3 gaming smartphones from one company. It seems like Nubia is trying to perfect this phone. Now, I was already super happy with the Redmagic 6. Best gaming smartphone, hands down. I used it every day, wicked battery life, supports very fast charging. If you are on a budget and you don't want to spend around £500, then for the current sale price of $389, you can grab hold of the Redmagic R Racing Edition. So it's super light, super slim in comparison, same Snapdragon performance, just no physical gaming switch, no headphone jack, slimmer trigger buttons, and slightly smaller 144Hz display. Still a banging smartphone. It's definitely nice to have a cheaper option. And all that being said, the new Redmagic 6S Pro, I would say, has only been slightly upgraded when compared to the original version 6. So yes, you have the upgraded Snapdragon 888 Plus with faster clock speeds and a much faster multi-touch sampling rate. You also have that new heart rate feature built in to the fingerprint sensor. And you've got upgraded and faster fans with a slightly higher peak brightness on the display. But everything else seems to be on par with the original 6 model. You have exactly the same headphone jacks, same stereo speakers, same resolution and size, same refresh rate. They even look close to identical. So the bottom line here is, if you don't already have a Redmagic smartphone, I would recommend you just go for the brand new Redmagic 6S Pro, which is now going to be my daily driver, as I'm already in love with the Redmagic 6. This is a most welcomed addition for me, for myself. I know I'm going to be enjoying this because I am loving the minor increments that an S version of a phone usually offers. Now, if you already have the 6R and you're thinking to upgrade, then yes, again, go for the 6S Pro. It's an amazing upgrade. You will feel and notice the difference. However, if you already have the original Model 6, then I definitely cannot recommend that you upgrade to the 6S Pro, as there is not a huge difference between them, and you might just feel like you've just bought the same phone again. So not enough going on in the 6S Pro to warrant an upgrade from the 6. But if you're coming from any other Android smartphone, then hell yeah, go for the 6S Pro and enjoy that MF gaming beast. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.